Without a doubt, my favorite line coming from the president saying, basically, the reason this entire scene is so painful is that Sakura crying on the ground. What hurts the most is knowing that he can't even get mad because someone like Tooru rejected her. Because no one's in the wrong, feelings are feelings, people like who they like, and it's not simply because, there's a fake relationship between Yuki as well as Tooru. Tooru has always enjoyed that fake relationship, and both him and Yuki have the inability to really speak their feelings in fear of that fakeness kind of shattering around them. And someone like Sakura, she got sidelined, which is pretty much love in general school life. You don't really see it too often in the adult years because really there's dating, and if you're not seeing someone, you don't have to see them again unless you happen to work with them or something like that. But the idea of high school love, it's pretty natural for there to be a group of students, and naturally, unless you're just trying to make everything convenient, not everyone will end up with someone. But then you have some authors, especially in the rom-com world, who will say, we're going to have 4 characters or we're going to have 6 characters, and we're going to have an equal number of male and female, and obviously there will be the love feuds, but then they'll get sidelined with another character just because they couldn't have their original crush. Where Horimiya is saying, no, people like who they like, and it's going to be a hard time to get over that love, and they might not end up with anyone by the end of the story, and that's perfectly normal. One of my favorite aspects about this show is definitely how it portrays love, and with having so much development on Hori as well as Miyamura's side, I've really been enjoying watching the side cast who in any other rom-com would have just been side characters. They might have 1 moment, 2 if you're lucky, but they really wouldn't feel that fleshed out like they actually build relationships that matter exactly alongside the main cast. And it's really interesting watching a show like this where for Hori and Miyamura, they've already reached further in most relationships that you ever see. They have already started exploring their kink life with sex. They're already the perfect couple. So at this point, having shenanigans Hori being more worried about the boys than the girls, which when you really think about it, Miyamura has been swept away more so by his male friends than he has by those females being oh, you're so hot now that you cut your hair and we see your piercings. So it's kind of understandable that she's worked up over that. So it just shows you the little bumps they have along the road, but still knowing they're the perfect couple. And the biggest thing I could have criticized about Horimiya is that they have so many characters and not all of them are utilized. But by having episodes upon episodes like this one, really just kind of say, hey, in most anime, if we had this kind of love feud between Tooru, Yuki, as well as Sakura, we would just sideline Sakura within a couple of minutes and then just make them get together. But there's been this long con game of her just not wanting to admit that she likes him because ever since she was a kid, she's always had an issue with saying what she wants, and in doing so, her sister would have to give up the brooch or the piece of accessory or whatever it may be because originally Yuki didn't want it, but then she started crying, so then she had to give it up just to avoid the mess. I think it's very interesting having a character like Yuki who maybe there'll be some people who would be no, she's definitely in the wrong, she tried to hurt Sakura, and yeah, that's kind of a mean thing, but high school's all about the mean things, really. Sometimes you do things you regret, and sometimes you do things that you don't regret, but then in hindsight, when you're much older, you realize you're pretty shitty about. But I really appreciate the president's line at the very end of the episode, because he kind of sees it for what it is. 2 people like the same person, and unfortunately, they were in a poly situation where it could be a group thing. No, they were very much mono, and it's just the way it is. One heart has to be broken, and another will probably be salvaged. And I really like the rooftop scene between, obviously, Tooru as well as Yuki, and the whole snow analogy, where he's such a horrible flirter, but I think he's kind of great all at the same time. To have a scene where they're talking about, because you can see their breath, it's very cold, he's saying he hopes it snows. The whole idea is you kind of have yin and yang here. Half a glass full sort of a guy, the other is just saying the glass is empty. I love how he's saying how beautiful it is, but she's saying it causes all the shoveling, it gets muddy and things like that, and then everyone waits for spring. And he's talking about how, the snow decides when it melts versus her saying, what are you talking about? You're an idiot. It melts when it gets hot out. And the idea where you're really starting to understand that this is a guy, especially when you get those flashbacks where he's blushing when he's holding her hand, you can crystal clear see that he enjoys her company and probably wants to go out with her, where Yuki is fearful because she doesn't think this will work out. Especially considering, both of them are pretty hard at explaining their feelings. like the fact that he says Sakura is too good for him sort of a thing. It's like they're both very much teenage, they're walls. They just don't know how to speak their mind, and I think it's pretty realistic. And I know some people, especially if they're going to be like soccer fans, are going to like just want to lash out and say, oh, how dare you, should have went with her. But I love how Horimiya is in this type of show that's saying, hey, you know, we're trying to appease fandoms and we're trying to appease these feelings. No, you're just trying to write a group of characters. And naturally with high school, not everyone ends up with someone. And even if you really, really like someone, sometimes a heart's gonna get broken. It just doesn't always magically work out, especially in a situation where people are still getting their hormones situated and they're entering the adult world where everything's a mess. So I'll definitely say both Remy as well as the president, I really enjoyed their participation in the episode. Remy kind of like really just not giving in to any of the shit, saying like, you know, you have to say your feelings, otherwise I'm not gonna help you out. Kind of just being like a brick wall sort of a situation in a good way, where she just wasn't backing down, and no matter how much a character like Yuki pushed back, she just didn't give in and fold. Where you have the president saying like a very comforting thing like, you know, whoever declined you must be an idiot because you're worth like everything in the world. Just being a really good supporting friend, showing like, you know, just keep your head up, someday someone will appreciate the feelings that you give them, sort of a thing. It was just a really emotionally engaging episode, and really only Horimiya, I can safely say, has given the time to flesh out this many side supporting characters that feel just as memorable as the main central duo. And in terms of the main central duo, we get like a few minutes of really funny comedy, and like I mentioned, I thought the entire scene was great. It was comedic gold, and I love how Hori, she's pretty much saying like, you know, I'm not even worried about the females. And if it does happen, just make sure it is them, because honestly for her, if she was able to turn Miyamura gay, to her not only would she feel like, man, I really ignored all these warning signs with all of these boys going over to his house, and all this time he was ignoring all the pretty girls latching on to him. It was just a ridiculous scene, and I love how we like reintroduced a character from last week who were like building this new friendship off of being bullied. And it was just great to see the shenanigans take place, and how she's literally more worried about the boys taking her Miyamura away than she is about the girls, because the girls, she can kick their asses and scare them away, and honestly, he's shown no interest. But the fact that there's always these boys coming around, I love how possessive she is, and just how like constantly every week you see Miyamura just like talking to his friends, saying something about like what he needs to change, and they're just saying like, my man, how are you gonna avoid men when you have to go to the bathroom? Just won't go to the bathroom. I love the ridiculousness to this show, and how it really just does feel like, damn, these connections are just so strong, especially considering the main duo. And even the ones that are definitely very rocky, and those that are having issues speaking their mind, you really do feel like they're building something that's very interesting. And with 3 episodes left to go, I'm excited to see where they go with this, because it really does feel like, I've said it for probably multiple weeks now at this point, like they could have ended the show at any point by like episode 8, 7, and I would have said we've seen more than enough to feel satisfied. So everything else is just an added bonus. So to get all those side casts, and to see, once again, more content with the main duo. This show's fantastic. It's beautifully directed, the comedy's on point, and the voice actors are surprisingly realistic, especially for like the breaking down scenes where characters cry or just having trouble speaking their mind. Beautiful stuff across the board, and as always, I'm excited for more. Let me know your thoughts and feelings down below. What did you think, and where do you think it might go with episode 11 next week? If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, share your support, and hit that subscribe button if you have been new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.